The United States is a country that prides itself on being the best at almost everything, especially sports. We're number one in basketball, number one in swimming, number one in track and field, number one in gymnastics. We even placed number one at the Math Olympiad. So as you can see, we're just number one at a lot of things. Just look at how many gold medals we have at the Olympics. But there is a sport that the US is notoriously known for not being the best at, and that's the beautiful game of football. Well, on the men's side. The women's side is actually pretty good, winning multiple World Cups and even got the gold medal at the recent Olympics, etc. But the men's side for the most part is usually known for being underwhelming and behind the rest of the world. However, at the start of this decade, it seemed like the narrative around the USMNT was changing, and that heading into the 2026 World Cup, we could have a golden generation at the peak of their powers. We had a ton of players playing in the best leagues in Europe, we were dominating the region, winning consecutive Nations League titles, a Gold Cup, etc. We were the only CONCACAF nation to make it out of the group stage at the 2022 World Cup, etc. Everything was lining up for the US to do something special at the World Cup we were hosting. But just a year out from that event, we're the worst we've looked in years. We crashed out of the Copa America in 2024 and the recent Nations League, and honestly, the future of this national team is just looking gloomy. So what's going on with the USMNT lately? What are the issues we're facing right now? And is there any hope that we can still do something special at the 2026 World Cup? Well, let's go over the USMNT right now. Starting off with the 2024 Copa America we were hosting, it was an absolute disaster on all fronts. We had one of the weakest groups on paper, containing the likes of Uruguay, Panama, and Bolivia, and even though it started off well with us beating Bolivia 2-0, that was a result that was expected. However, in the game against Panama, a side we should be beating to secure qualification to the quarterfinals, Timothy Weah got a red card for punching a Panamanian player. And although Balogun scored a worldie to put us up front, we would concede 2 goals in the remainder of the game, and would lose a must-win match to Panama 2-1. Then in the last group stage game, we would lose to Uruguay 1-0, and we would be the first host in the history of Copa America to crash out of the tournament in the group stages. Greg Berhalter, the manager at the time, deserved the sacking, and that's exactly what happened, with the US assigned to move on to try and find a new coach a little less than 2 years out from hosting the World Cup. And this is when the US Soccer Federation surprised me in a good way for once. Instead of just hiring some bum MLS manager like a Greg Berhalter, they decided to go all out and try to hire some managing royalty. And although they initially tried to hire Jurgen Klopp, wow, what an appointment that would have been, huh? We probably got the next best manager available on the market in Mauricio Pochettino, a manager who's known for helping nurture young talent like he did with Tottenham, which is one of the reasons why it seemed like he was a good fit for the US. Additionally, he did also help Tottenham make a Champions League final, inspiring them to make a legendary comeback against Ajax in the second leg semi-final away from home, while also managing top clubs like PSG and Chelsea. And when Poch was hired, I thought maybe he could be the right man for the job to help this US program turn the poor summer around and get us back in shape for the World Cup. And in his first set of games in October, it seemed like it was going decently well, with us being the team that knocked us out of the Copa America, Panama 2-0 in the friendly. But then when we went away to Mexico, without a lot of our star players like Pulisic for example, who was sent home for load management reasons, we got outplayed by them for the first time in like 5 years and lost 2-0. Now I know it was just a friendly, but still this performance was nowhere near good enough. But it was Poch's first game, so we couldn't be too harsh. Calma. And to be fair to Poch, he did set us up well in the CONCACAF Nations League quarterfinal games against Jamaica, with Poch helping guide the USMNT to beat Jamaica away from home 1-0 thanks to a goal from Ricardo Pepi, and this was the first away win from the USMNT since that 2022 World Cup qualifier against Honduras. That's how long it's been. And then in the second leg at home, although we conceded 2 goals to Jamaica, we were much better than the Jamaicans and dominated them to beat them 4-2, and Pulley celebrated doing the Donald Trump dance. Listen, the dance is kind of funny, but why, Pulley, why? What made you think this was a good idea? We all knew you were a right winger. I'm not talking about football, by the way. You just didn't have to bring that back up again. Then at Camp Cupcake, for those of you who don't know, it's when American MLS players play against some country C teams. USA would beat Venezuela 3-1 and then Costa Rica 3-0. And we did have this funny moment coming out of these games. Now usually it is well known in the US soccer sphere that you don't take the performances played at Camp Cupcake too seriously. The level of opposition is just never good enough. But guess what? Poch did. And this is when the alarms on my head started ringing a bit, because Poch selected 9 MLS players, and a majority of them came from Camp Cupcake, like Max Arfsten, the left back, Brian Gutierrez, Patrick Agyemang, Diego Luna, who ended up being the best inclusion at the end, but you get the point. This is something that even Greg Berhalter didn't do for the Nations League, but Poch is. He was just making some interesting roster decisions is all, and I know we had some injuries to big players, like Malik Tillman, Serginho Dest, Ricardo Pepi, Balogun, Anthony Robinson, etc. But still, I expected a better roster selection. But that didn't matter, because in the semi-final, we had to play Panama, a side who has got the better of us in competitive games. But it felt like we overcame that in the October friendly against them 2-0. So although we had a depleted side, this squad was more than good enough to beat Panama. Surely, right? But what the hell is Yudis Musa doing at right back, bro? Anyways, the US dominated the game on the stat sheet. We had 12 shots at Panama's 3, 5 on target compared to Panama's measly 1, and we had 67% possession. Basically had the ball for 2/3 of the entire game, and we had double the passes compared to Panama. But the stat sheet would paint a false picture, because with stats like these, you would expect the US to win this game, right? But that couldn't be further from the truth, because although Josh Sargent got a couple of chances in the first half, with them hitting the post with one opportunity and then scoring a pretty good goal but it was offside, Sargent just couldn't score for the US, which is typical because this guy barely scores for us, although he does love scoring for Norwich City in the championship, which just leaves me more confused. But anyways, his replacement, Ajimon, came on the pitch, and he would have a couple of good opportunities too, like a one-on-one chance which was easily saved, and then him shooting the ball over the crossbar right in front of the net. But it just seemed like the US had the momentum, and eventually we would crack down on this Panama low block. But instead, guess what? In the 90 plus 4th minute, a Panama substitute in the game, Cecilia Waterman, yeah, his name is Waterman, was somehow left wide open on the right hand side. And due to Matt Turner's terrible goalkeeping positioning, probably due to his lack of minutes at Crystal Palace, Waterman shot a pretty savable shot, and the ball went into the back of the net as Panama scored the late winner in the game to win this semifinal match unexpectedly 1-0. And want to know what makes this even worse for US fans? Waterman decided to celebrate with Thierry Henry of the CBS crew, calling him his idol in front of national television, and in front of our best ever player in Clint Dempsey.
You don't know where I'm from, dog.
And the Panama team proceeded to all celebrate with Diti. And this celebration made its rounds all over social media. And that means people all across the world that didn't even know the CONCACAF Nations League existed saw us getting dunked in our own backyard 1-0 by Panama. Well, it was hardly our backyard. Nobody showed up to watch the game. But yeah, y'all know what I mean. Yeah, this game was a hard watch. I seriously don't know what Poch was thinking. There's no excuses for him in this one. We had Gio Reyna and Diego Luna on the bench when we needed a goal to end the game in normal time. And instead, Poch wanted to wait until extra time for some reason. And instead, he put on Jack McGlynn. Nothing against Jack, because he wasn't bad. But we needed to attack the goal, which isn't Jack's strong suit. So he really shouldn't have been on the pitch. Not only that, man, it just feels like Poch isn't taking this job as seriously as he should. For the press conferences regarding the Nations League, he was the only national team coach that did not show up. Instead, he was having a fancy dinner in London. Then when coaches are examining their talent pool and flying to different places to talk to players, like Greg did to his defense, Poch is out here coaching ISO speed in charity matches. Brother, you are not a free agent coach anymore. You're the coach of the United States men's national team, the home of the next World Cup. What are you doing, bruh? You need to lock in. This guy was literally talking about how the US could win the World Cup and could be the #1 football nation in the world in 5 to 10 years. Yeah, maybe, but not if you're not giving 100% to your job, which doesn't seem like Poch is doing. And plus, we're not being #1 at the sport, bro. That's a ridiculous claim. I'll kind of touch on that a little bit later. Not only that, this guy Poch is talking about how President Trump can help us. How the hell is Trump going to help the US at the 2026 World Cup? Is he going to line up next to Chris Richards in the back of defense? Like, what's going on here? Well, unless Trump gives Infantino some bread. And if that's on the cards, let's run back South Korea 2002 or Argentina 1978. I'll take whatever at this point, bro. I'm desperate. But overall, for $6 million a year, what we're giving Poch, he doesn't seem that invested. And maybe we screwed up with this hiring. I doubt he'll get sacked though, because we spent way too much money on getting him. But has the US screwed up? Are we now doomed? But first, we gotta talk about the third place game against Canada, where I'll just cut straight to the chase. We were outplayed and outfought in this match, even after Alphonso Davies had to be subbed out due to injury. And even though the US scored in this game, mainly thanks to Diego Luna, who gave a great assist to Ajimon, whose bad shot straight to the goalie went in, Canada scored 2 goals and won the third place game 2-1. Which means that after winning 3 Nations Leagues in a row, we now finished 4th place with an apparent world-class manager at the helm. Not only that, our rivals Mexico won the Nations League in our place instead, the one trophy that they couldn't get earlier. Man, this shit sucks. So what's going on with the US? Why are we looking like the worst we've been in years 1 year out of the World Cup? Well, I might have some ideas on why. My first reason is that this United States side is not a golden generation. Now, it did seem like it initially with a lot of our players playing in Europe, and maybe this still is our most talented side on paper, but a golden generation? Nah, man, this ain't it. Out of all the players all us USA fans hyped up, there's only a few that have sort of lived up to the hype so far. The biggest name is Christian Pulisic, who's one of the best players in the Serie A right now, and AC Milan's most productive player in the past couple of seasons. In fact, his goal in the Italian Super Cup helped AC Milan win that competition against their bitter rivals Inter. Then who else do we have? Jedi Robinson, a top 2 left back in the Premier League this season. Maybe you could say McKennie, who time and time again has proved haters wrong for Juventus, but he still kind of lacks the goal contributions. And honestly, that might be it. Yunus Musa might be at AC Milan right now, but he's practically the same player he was 4 years ago with Valencia. In fact, some might say he's regressed. Crazy to think that that's the same guy who bossed the England midfield at the World Cup. Then there's Gio Reyna. He's still at Borussia Dortmund, barely playing and barely contributing. He even had a loan spell at Nottingham for half a season, where he got a grand total of 1 assist. So yeah, he's not lived up to the hype. Matt Turner barely plays for Crystal Palace, which is a problem the goalkeeper has to play. Timothy Weah went from a striker/winger to a fullback at club level with Juventus. Serginho Dest had to take a step down to PSV Eindhoven after not being good enough for Barcelona and AC Milan. Even though I still love Serginho, I think he's a beast. Tim Ream's a dinosaur and he plays in the MLS now. Chris Richards is okay, so is Cameron Carter-Vickers. Tyler Adams always gets injured, but when he's fit, he's good. Johnny Cardoso, Mal Tillman, etc. are good players at club level, but for the national team, they just haven't performed that well. Daligan has been constantly injured this season. Joe Scott is alright, etc. And these are the players who are still still relevant to the national team today? What about the ones who are nowhere near the radar anymore? Like Connor De La Fuente, who remembers him? Or Richie Ledesma, Ulises Lainez of Wolfsburg? Where is this guy, bruh? Etc. So basically, the squad that inherited this golden generation name tag is simply just not that good. And honestly, they don't really deserve that golden generation name tag either. I'm not saying that this team is bad and all the players are awful, no. But golden generation is giving these guys too many flowers. Because honestly, past USMNT generations would manhandle this current one. And I'm not even trolling. And that brings me to my second reason. This doesn't look like a United States men's national team. And let me explain what I mean by this. Past USMNT generations played like they had a chip on their shoulders, that they had something to prove, and they were coming in as outcasts or underdogs, if you will. But this team doesn't really have that. They don't have that oomph, you know what I mean? The 2002 World Cup, the US was put in a decently tough group, and yet we beat Portugal 3-2, a side that contained Luis Figo, by the way, and drew to the eventual and controversial semifinalist South Korea 1-1 to finish second place and make it through. And then although on paper Mexico, our rivals and round 16 opponents, had a better team than us at the World Cup, and they also topped their group, the US embraced that underdog mentality and beat them 2-0 at the World Cup and made the quarterfinals, where we barely lost to eventual finalist Germany 1-0, even though we should have won a penalty for a handball off the line from funnily Berhalter's header, but I digress. Then at the 2010 World Cup, we had that 1-1 win against England, if you know you know. Then we drew to Slovenia 2-2 in the next game, a match we arguably should have won if the ref didn't sell on us, and then in the last match against Algeria, we gave it our all until the dying seconds, and that's when Landon Donovan scored the iconic 90+ first minute goal and sent us through to the round 16. But not only that, helped us top the group over England. And although we still lost 2-1 in Ghana in the round 16, it was still an impressive tournament overall for us, and a tournament we can look back on and say, wow, I felt proud being American watching this World Cup. Then moving on to 2014, we were literally given the group of death containing our kryptonites Ghana, Germany, who went on to win the World Cup, and a prime Cristiano Ronaldo leading Portugal. And guess what? When the whole world was counting us out, the US got down and dirty and fought with tooth and nail to get the best chance of going through. And we did. We beat Ghana 2-1 in the opening game thanks to a last minute header from John Brooks. Then in the next game against Portugal, Jermaine Jones' legendary long shot and Clint Dempsey's late goal made it seem like we were going to get a 2-1 win against a prime Cristiano Ronaldo, although they equalized late to make it 2-2. And then although we lost to the eventual World Cup champions Germany 1-0, we still made it out of the group of death in second place over Portugal. And in the round 16, we gave it our all against Belgium's golden generation, with Tim Howard making a record 16 saves in a World Cup knockout game. And although we lost 2-1, we kept it close. And maybe we could have won if Wondolowski hit a shot on target, but I digress. Watching these performances at previous World Cups, watching us embrace this underdog mentality was something that the American people could identify with this team. And it felt like a team that all of us were proud of supporting. Even though we weren't the best, it was a team that I enjoyed supporting. But now, this USMNT generation, it just doesn't feel the same. Instead, it feels like we abandoned our Americanness in football, and we're trying to emulate like being a European team, like playing from the back and all this woke rubbish that we never tried before. This isn't who we are. This isn't the USMNT I fell in love with, bro. And it would make sense to play this way if we were good enough to play like that, but we're not. For crying out loud, bro, we literally have Matt Turner and net. Why are we playing from the back, man? And this United States team has never done what the past generations could, and that's beating a team that's better than them. Never. This USMNT generation has never done that. And don't you dare say Morocco, where we spanked them in that 3-0 friendly before the World Cup. That was a completely different Morocco side that made the 2022 semifinals. In fact, I think the only times that I feel proud to be American watching this side is when we play against Mexico. That's the only time where I feel like these players actually show up for the badge. Other than that, when have you played or beat a team that's equal or better than us? Never. Not even at the World Cup. We didn't beat Wales when we should have. We drew to England, which is fine. And we barely squeaked by Iran 1-0, who I personally believe we were better than at the time. Then against a team that's better than us, Netherlands, we took it like a good boy and lost to them 3-1 convincingly. Like, what happened to our players, man? Why does it seem like although we've progressed in our talent pool and we got players in big European clubs, why does it feel like for the USMNT, we've regressed? And this transitions to my third reason. The pay-to-play model is to blame. Now, for those of you who aren't from the US, this might sound crazy to y'all, but you have to pay money to play football in the United States. And it's not like $70 to register for a season. No. It's thousands of dollars. And some families aren't able to afford to send their kids to play football, which is why there's definitely talent out there in this country that has slipped through the cracks, just because they didn't have the money to play this beautiful game. In the Guardian article talking about this, they state that clubs in California, which is where I'm from, have a price ranging from $1,000 to $10,000 a year for your child to play in youth soccer teams. And as a Californian man, I can confirm it's expensive over here. I had to suffer from this, bro. I literally could have been a professional footballer. I promise you. Not only that, in this article, they know that a study by the Sports and Fitness Industry Association in 2018 found that more than 70% of children within the pay-to-play system came from households who earn more than $50,000 a year, and 33% came from households making more than $10,000 a year. Now, you don't have to be a genius to figure this out, but $100,000 a year is a lot of money, and that type of money a lot of families just don't have. Only a third of the population mathematically earns this sort of bread. Then, according to the US Census Bureau, the median household in that 2018 year was $61,937, which means the average is well below the $100,000 per year mark, with 7 states in America being lower than $50K a year. Not only that, Hispanic households, which it's no secret, Hispanics in this country on average average love the sport more than anyone, have a median income of around $51,000, while black households average $41,000, and if you're younger than 25, the median income was just $33,000. So just in case you need me to explain this in simpler terms, a lot of kids and their families in the United States can't afford to play football. It's just not financially possible for them. Even former US women's star Alex Morgan spoke about this, saying she believes the pay-to-play system model has gotten even worse in recent years, and America made a very inexpensive sport expensive, and that this is detrimental to the sport. And she's not wrong. It is really harming the potential of this country. So many top players in the world don't come from privileged backgrounds. Neymar's family sometimes couldn't afford meals to eat. Cristiano Ronaldo's family was impoverished, as we all probably know by now. His story is pretty out there. Wayne Rooney literally came from a working class family. Luka Modric literally escaped war in this country to become a footballer. And for crying out loud, look at our neighbors to the north. Alphonso Davies became a footballer after fleeing Liberia/Ghana to Canada, and only after participating in a free-to-play soccer program that helped develop his game. But for some reason, when it comes to the US, we rarely have these stories. We do have a couple though. For example, like Ricardo Pepi, a man born and raised in El Paso, a city in Texas very close to the Mexican border, where he was raised in a working class family in a place where the per capita income is over $12,400, lower than the national average, and lower levels of education as well. He had to work his way up out of nowhere and make sure he made it in football to try and build a better life for him and his family financially, a family who sacrificed a lot to make sure Pepe's dreams can come true. Then the only player who can hold his head up high after the Nations League in March, Diego Luna, who was born and raised in the Bay Area like me, noticed himself that he was becoming a bad kid while still being in the Earthquakes Academy. So he sent himself off to Arizona to play for Barcelona's Residency Academy, where he would call his family crying saying he wanted to come back. Then to make it professional football, he would go the hard route, playing for El Paso's team in the USL, to then Real Salt Lake, even becoming a barista in the process, just so he could develop his socializing skills. That's the type of grind we're looking for. And even after getting snubbed from the US Olympic roster, he would work his way out to make it a senior team and impress it. These are a couple of rare exceptions, but for the most part, the US does not have stories like these anymore. Let's quickly glance over the market values of the US players and see whether they were part of this pay-to-play system for that long and had to work their way up in the US or not. Christian Pulisic is first with a value of 50 million euros. He left in Dortmund at a very young age and never played for an academy like an MLS team back here, so he doesn't count. Jedi is next, but he wasn't raised in the US, so he doesn't count. Malik Tillman wasn't born or raised in the US, so he doesn't count. Weston McKennie's dad was doing military duty in Germany, where McKennie would rise through the Schalke Academy, so he doesn't count either. Musso wasn't raised in the US. Balogun wasn't raised in the US. Jordi Cardoso was raised in Brazil. Tyler Adams spent 1 year with the Red Bulls to my knowledge before leaving to Leipzig at a young age, so he doesn't count in my books either. Serginho Dest wasn't born or raised in the States. And finally, in 10th place in terms of the US market value players, we have Ricardo Pepi, who fought his way through the pay-to-play system. But as we can see, a majority of our best players don't come through this model, which means it's not working. The pay-to-play system sucks. Even some of our other best players that I didn't mention don't come through the system either, like Gio Reyna, who left to Dortmund at a young age. Timothy Weah, who's brought up in PHG's academy. Cameron Carter-Vickers was raised in the UK. Joe Sky left to Gladbach at a young age. Chris Richards did the same with Bayern Munich and went through their academy instead, etc. So as you can see, the pay-to-play model is clearly affecting how we're developing our players, with the majority of our US players not coming through this model. And I know what the pay-to-play stands will say. Where's the money gonna come from then? Brother, maybe the multi-billion-dollar federation, USSF, they can figure it out. Just like many other federations in the sport have figured it out. So USSF, figure it out. Now I don't want to end this by just talking about how doom and gloom things are looking right now for the United States national team heading into the 2026 World Cup. So maybe let's talk about a couple of things that could be potential hope that maybe we could do well. And first, teams do turn it around right before a World Cup. Look at Morocco, for example. Right before the 2022 World Cup, they were a disaster. But they fired their coach, convinced some star players to come back like Ziyech, and they went on to progress from a very difficult group and made the semifinals of the World Cup. Mind you, they only managed to turn it around 3 months before the tournament, so it's possible. Plus, teams in hot form heading into the World Cup don't always do well. Germany was looking hot heading into the 2018 World Cup. They won the previous one in 2014, they made the Olympics final in 2016, won the Confederations Cup in 2017 with basically a B team, made the Euro semifinal in 2016, won the Under-21 European Championship in 2017, etc. They were dominant, and then they crashed out in the group stages of the World Cup. So anything's possible is what I'm saying. And besides Qatar and partly South Africa, who did decent in my books, host nations typically overperform at World Cups. And we're hosting in 2026, so there's still hope. And I think the second hopeful thing I'd say is there's still some talent coming through the US ranks, and some we could use sooner rather than later. And I'm not talking about the likes of Kevin Sullivan, who's the poster boy for the next generation, but I'm talking about players that we could maybe use at the World Cup. For example, Cole Campbell is a left-footed right winger, something we don't really have in our pool yet, who plays for Borussia Dortmund and has gotten a good amount of senior team minutes this season. And if he gets a loan in the summer and plays consistently and well, he could be on that roster. Then there's Noah Kai Banks, the center back who plays for Augsburg's senior team right now that Roma desperately wants. If he plays more consistently, he could be on that roster too. Then there's Joshua Winder, who just made his Benfica senior team debut, etc. So there are players coming through that could be ready to fight for a USMNT roster spot. And the more players that could challenge the senior team, the better. But anyways, what do you guys think about the USMNT right now and their chances at the 2026 World Cup? Y'all still think we could do something special or not? Do you guys think Trump will help us rig during the tournament? Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Now, if you enjoyed this video, please remember to subscribe to the channel. I'd really appreciate it. And please be sure to follow my Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, and join the Discord community. All the links are in my YouTube description. And last but not least, if you want to learn about some of the World Cup mysteries that keep me up at night, you definitely want to check out this video right here. You won't regret it.